Hey everyone, welcome back. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. So we are now just 10 days away from that June 1st deadline of when we must raise the debt ceiling. Otherwise, we're going to have an economic catastrophe and it could cause a delay of the on-time payments for Social Security. So let's hope that doesn't happen. They need to pass this bill by the 1st of June to make sure we do not default on our debts. So we're going to be giving some updates on that. Kevin McCarthy and the president actually met yesterday, so we'll be going over all the news on that and where they currently stand. Also, there's currently a plan for Social Security on the table. It would include $1.5 trillion in new borrowed money. We're going to be going over that as well and watching a video interview of the lawmaker and his plan that's currently on the table. But before we go ahead and dive into the main content of today's video, if you wouldn't mind helping me out real quickly by just giving this video a like, that just helps out with the good old YouTube algorithm, and also consider subscribing to my channel if you have not already. Okay, so once again, we had the House Speaker and Kevin McCarthy meeting up with President Joe Biden for the first time since he left for his trip over to Japan for the G7 summit. Things really got pretty bad over the weekend. Negotiators were in the room working on behalf of the House Speaker and President Joe Biden. They actually, instead of getting closer to an agreement, they actually got further apart. So things were getting pretty ugly and things just weren't looking all that good in regards to actually reaching an agreement. So yesterday they met up for the first time since last week, and things got maybe a little bit better according to reports. They said they were getting closer to compromise. Other reports say they are still pretty far apart. Now they do have some agreements in place. So some of the agreements include that both sides agree on include rescinding unspent COVID-19 funding. So during the pandemic, they had a lot of aid out there that they just never spent this money. They never spent it like on stimulus checks or anything like that. So they're going to take back all this money and decide not to spend it. Now, some of the disagreements that they actually have right now is in regards to work requirements in order to receive certain federal benefits like SNAP benefits or Medicaid. Republicans want to have work requirements of at least 20 hours per week in order to receive SNAP benefits. Joe Biden and other Democrats are saying no, this should not be included. So they do have a disagreement on that. Also, Joe Biden wants to push out, he wants to raise the debt ceiling past 2024, so he won't have to once again deal with this during his presidency, at least in this term. If he's reelected, of course, he will have to deal with it once again, but he wants to push it past 2024. Republicans just want to raise the debt ceiling for 1 year, so they'll once again have to deal with this before he runs for re-election next year in 2024 versus whoever he's up against. So they do have some agreements, but they also have some lingering disagreements. And at the end of the day, of course, that could definitely be the downfall. Now, since they do have these disagreements and they're just 10 days away from default, a lot of Democrats are actually saying, Biden, hey, it's time that you definitely just need to go ahead and use the 14th Amendment to unilaterally, by yourself and by yourself alone, you have the authority to do this, to raise the debt ceiling by yourself by using the 14th Amendment. Now, of course, this could definitely be challenged in court. So Biden is kind of, he's not really wanting to do this. Maybe at the last second he will, but right now he's really not in favor of doing it. He wants to work with Republicans to try to compromise, but obviously that could be very difficult because, if he's giving in to the Republican demands, it might be tough for Democrats to back that, at least in the Senate, because in the Senate, Democrats do have a small control of 51 to 49 in the Senate. So even if Biden says, hey, yes, we can do this, if he agrees with something with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, it may not actually pass the Senate if Democrats are not on board. So we'll just have to wait and see how this happens. So according to CNBC, McCarthy calls Biden meeting productive and professional, but no debt ceiling deal yet. So the House Speaker Kevin McCarthy said he had a productive and professional meeting with President Joe Biden on how to raise the debt ceiling, but that the two did not reach a deal on Monday. Quote, I think the tone tonight was better than any other night we've had discussions, McCarthy said outside the West Wing following the hour-long meeting. The meeting was also helpful to the negotiating teams who are hammering out the complex deal. GOP Representative Patrick McHenry, who is negotiating on McCarthy's behalf, said, quote, it told us in the negotiating team a little more of the details we need to get to a package that can pass Congress. To hear the Speaker and the President air their views directly with one another, no acrimony, it was productive and it was a meaningful discussion and helpful to us getting a construct that can protect everyone's equities. Ahead of the meeting, Biden emphasized that both men needed a deal that we can sell to both sides of a closely divided, hyper-partisan Congress. Biden said, quote, "We still have some disagreements, but I think we may be able to get where we have to go." And really here, I think that Biden just highlighted what might be the biggest problem here, because if McCarthy gives into some of the demands of President Joe Biden, we may no longer have any Republicans signing onto the bill. But on the other hand of things, if Biden gives into what McCarthy wants, we might have Democrats no longer backing the bill of whatever McCarthy and Biden agree to. And remember, Democrats do have a slim majority in the Senate of 51 to 49. So if all 49 Republicans agree with whatever the two agree on, we still need to have at least 11 Democrats to get to the 60 votes. And that might be the problem at the end of the day. Because remember, June 1st is still the deadline. We do have other people coming out, other experts saying, hey, it might really be like June 8th or June 15th. But yesterday, we actually had the Treasury Secretary and Janet Yellen reiterate her stance that June 1st is still going to be that serious deadline. So according to the U.S. Department of the Treasury website, Secretary of the Treasury Janet Yellen sends letter to congressional leadership on the debt limit. And she said, "I am writing to follow up on my previous letters regarding the debt limit and to provide additional information regarding the Treasury Department's ability to continue to finance the operations of the federal government." She said, "With an additional week of information now available, I am writing to note that we estimate that it is highly likely that Treasury will no longer be able to satisfy all of the government's obligations if Congress has not acted to raise or suspend the debt limit by early June and potentially as early as June 1st. So June 1st is still that deadline there. Of course, later on this week, we do have Memorial Day weekend coming up, which means that, of course, Congress is actually going to leave home. They're going to be going on recess. That's going to be starting on Thursday afternoon. Now, the House Speaker and Kevin McCarthy said that he's willing to suspend that recess and make everyone stay in D.C. to hammer out a deal if they're not able to get something done, because the fact of the matter is next week is going to be June 1st. So if they want to have any chance of this thing passing and not defaulting on our debts, they definitely need to have an agreement this week, and they probably need to vote on it later on this week as well to make sure that it does pass in time. This is going to be extremely crucial, and we actually have one of the representatives working on behalf of McCarthy and Patrick McHenry saying that he's very concerned that they're going to come to any sort of an agreement that has a chance of passing both the House and the Senate as well. They had to find something bipartisan, so they're really walking on a thin, tight rope right now. So whether or not they're able to work out something that can work for both sides, we'll just have to wait and see. June 1st is the deadline, so this is, quite scary. They are walking a very thin, tight rope right now. Let's hope they get things done. Now, of course, we also have some other deadlines in regards to Social Security as well. That, of course, is going to be a little bit later out. It's actually going to be around 10 years from now, 2033. Right now is the date in which if we do not do something about Social Security in the program, all beneficiaries of Social Security will receive a cut of right around 25%. That means that if you're receiving $1,000 per month, that will be cut down to $750 per month. That is something that we definitely cannot do. And that is why we actually have a group of bipartisan lawmakers creating a plan that could potentially save Social Security and has the chance to pass both the House and the Senate and get it signed into law. So we're going to be watching an interview here by one lawmaker. His plan includes $1.5 trillion in additional borrowed funds. They would be investing that money in stocks and pretty much like the U.S. economy. And that money would grow over time, and they would actually use that money to continue funding Social Security. That way we would not be having benefit cuts of 25%. We would not have to raise the full retirement age, and we would also not have to raise taxes. So let's go ahead and watch this video, and then we will come back to talk about it.
So you have a plan to create a $1.5 trillion fund that would use investment returns to fund Social Security. Again, we're about 9 years out from insolvency estimated. Given how D.C. works or doesn't work, given how we're waiting until the last minute with the debt limit, we're going to go through this again in the fall with government funding. Is there any willingness among your colleagues, Democrats and Republicans in the Senate and the House, to act now to try to fix this problem?
First, to put this in context, when insolvency comes in 9 years, people who are currently receiving social benefits will get a 24% cut. That's the reason you want to act now. And if you wait until the deadline, then the cuts are bigger and the tax increases are greater. And so if you want to solve it now without that, you need to solve it now. And we actually had bipartisan senators and bipartisan group of representatives that were willing to commit to this big idea. Again, $1.5 trillion in an investment fund, separate from Social Security, and the risk falls upon the fund. If the market goes down, people still get their benefits. No 24% cut. When Joe Biden came out in his State of the Union speech and began to speak about Republicans trying to take away your Social Security, it all fell apart. The president clearly plans to run for re-election, as does Joe Biden, as does Donald Trump, making Social Security an issue, attacking anyone who comes against them. They are ignoring a problem which is important for our seniors, important for our nation's indebtedness. I wish both of them would show real leadership.
So I gotta say, this is a pretty interesting plan. I would definitely be on board with it myself if they could actually get this to work, and we would not have to be raising the full retirement age once again all the way up to 70, which would be extremely unfair. And also, if we would not have to raise taxes on other Americans as well, I could definitely get on board with this bill. But let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. Do you think that it would work? Are you against the plan? Do you think it's too risky? Let me know all your thoughts in comments below. Definitely enjoy reading all of them. But that's all the news that I have for today's video. I certainly hope that you enjoyed. If you did, again, I would greatly appreciate if you could give this video a like. Consider subscribing to my channel if you have not already, and I will see you in the next video.